13. Life is an adventure. My childhood experience with raising chickens led me to aspire to be a successful farmer. I started with 12 hens, and the next year had about 100 chicks. Very quickly, the chicks grew up to be hens. Unexpectedly, a ferocious disease called Newcastle swept down upon them. They couldn't stand up or peck the food lying on the ground. Within a week, they all died. My brother helped me bury the hens. I got so mad at my misfortune that I broke the coop into pieces. The effort I had put in for almost a year to become a successful farmer had turned into ashes. When flowers started to bloom the next spring, I decided to raise chickens again. With the money I had earned from private teaching, I bought 1,000 chicks and 30 roosters. I was destined to fail in chicken farming because I started the business without any knowledge, experience, or specific plans. I had to keep all the chicks in one corner of my bedroom. Within a week, they had doubled in size and took up a lot more space. About a month later, the heater broke, and the temperature had dropped so much that the room would have been good for Eskimos. To my amazement, the chicks were piled up like a great tower, and those at the bottom were all dead. The dead chickens were stuck together, and I could see steam smoldering out of the heap of piled chickens. I lost 360 chicks in one night. Every day, 10 to 20 died. If a chick had dirt on its feathers, all the other chickens kept pecking the dirt until the chick's intestines were gone. I was like an undertaker who performed funerals for chickens every day. Only half of them lived, and I was experiencing one crisis after another. When the chicks grew up to be hens, they flew over the walls, and I had a hard time catching them and bringing them back. The hens were everywhere, running around the garden and the yard. One day, all my neighbors had to help me catch my hens outside the street while traffic officers were dispatched to control the traffic. As a result, I concluded that it was impossible to raise them in the city. My mind was made up. I moved to a small house in the suburbs. I withdrew all of my savings from the bank to build 2 coops with expensive tile roofs, while the roof of my own house was made of cheap tin. The chicken coops were cool enough in the summer and warm enough in the winter for the hens to live comfortably. One day, while my mother and I were building chicken coops, 2 policemen came to see me and said, "Since you have built 2 chicken coops without a construction permit, we may have to prosecute you for the violation. The only choice you have is to demolish the chicken coops and start the construction again." I begged and begged them to give me a chance, but they wouldn't listen. I couldn't destroy the coops that had been completed, so the next day I had to pay a penalty for the violation. After 600 chicks grew up to be hens, every day they laid about 450 eggs that I had to sell before the next day. I had to clean up their droppings and dry them in the sun to make fertilizer. I got up at 4 in the morning, prepared chicken food, fed all the hens, cleaned the coops, delivered eggs, and then went to school. I worked for a NBC radio station as a singer and taught students English at home. I was busy, but I never felt exhausted because I was fighting for survival and was doing the things I loved to do. I was more concerned with doing the best I could. I said to myself, I may fail 100 times, but I will make one victory. The failures will all become steps to a victory. My chicken farming ended in failure, but I didn't give up. I promised myself that I would do it again, much better next time. Later, I started to raise pigs, but I failed in that business too. I tried to raise 300 turkeys, but I also failed in that business. I raised geese, but the result was another failure. I raised 3,000 wild ducks, but I failed again. Every business I started failed because I had no specific plans and no practical or theoretical knowledge in any of the businesses. I was the champion of failure. Everything I started failed. However, I kept trying. never giving up. Life is an adventure. I've enjoyed every minute of my life, but I now realize how foolish I was in starting one business after another without preparing carefully well in advance. It was all my fault. I knew I deserved the failures.